Hello, friends. This is Ruckus, and as you can tell right away, this is not a normal Change Working podcast episode, but I wanted to quickly put this out because if you have an interest in conversational hypnosis, you're going to want to hear about what we have happening. Number one, if you check the link in the description, you can get a free 1-hour training with James on conversational hypnosis. Just click that link, put in your email, and you'll immediately be able to get right to it. Also, I wanted to tell you that James and I are doing a 6-week-long training on conversational hypnosis, specifically called X-Raying Realities for Conversational Hypnosis. So if you're curious what that will be about, take a listen to this short conversation James and I have talking about what the training is going to be over the next 6 weeks. And if you check in the descriptions, you'll find out how you can sign up if you're interested in joining, and a coupon code where you can get 10% off your first month. That coupon is good for the next week. If you're coming to this conversation later, keep in mind that every session will be put back into the portal as a replay. So if you're coming in on week 2, you can watch week 1 as a replay, get caught back up, and then join live for the rest of the sessions. Okay, so check those links in the description below. And here's my conversation with James talking about what this training is going to be.
The way we found our way into this, we were doing that live thing, and I talked about kind of X-raying your reality, and then people went, how do you do that? And I said, well, the meta model is a good place to start. And then I said this thing kind of on the fly about actually you could combine it with the Milton model. And I'd never done it before. And then so an idea was born. So anyway, I think this is a good and unique idea. We look at this idea of the meta model as X-raying reality. Conversational hypnosis is about reorganizing people's reality. So you want to find out how it's organized in the first place and get a sense of the implications of that, what kind of trances, problematic trances that's having come alive, and how we move that. The advantage of conversational hypnosis is you can use it cross-contextually, regardless of where you are. You're a consultant, you're a coach, you're a therapist, you're not having to be a particular type of practitioner.
It's the same way you can use clean language. You could just work that into anything you're doing.
Yeah. And in a sense, with conversational hypnosis, even more so than clean language. So you can do under the radar conversational hypnosis where you can literally be in a conversation with somebody and all they think that's happening is a conversation, but you are working strategically and tactically to help them reorganize their reality in more functional ways. Or you can do on the radar conversational hypnosis, which is still conversational, but it's framed as hypnosis. The idea of hypnosis is in the air. That's an explicitly introduced idea. So you have a slightly wider range of dynamics that you can play with and strategies and tactics. But, the idea is if you're coming into client shifts, if you're a professional change agent, whatever the context you're in, this is going to help you out. So one of the frames I played is that idea from Erickson, they took the shell but left the nut, is actually, if you're a metacognitive therapist or an acceptance and commitment therapist, you have a nut. You have one.
Right.
So you actually can now go, oh, I have this. How can I use conversational hypnosis in the service of acceptance and commitment therapy, metacognitive therapy, IFS, literally anything? It's like, well, how do we bring these principles in? In a sense, whatever techniques anybody does, there's never a client session where you're going to have no conversation on all techniques. It's never going to happen, right? You're going to have conversation. Conversation is the main container for all the work. I like working that way. I've worked that way with the police people. 99% of what I'm doing is conversational hypnosis. And that's in a context where the results are measured. There are ways of measuring the results. There is constant feedback. You have to be doing effective work or you don't get to work there. That's the way it goes. So I know the stuff works because I'm working it all the time.
I was going to ask, why do you feel like it's not being taught more?
I think it's not taught more because, number one, people go, conversational hypnosis, what's that? The first place they go is the Milton model. This is the way it goes, right? They might take a slightly different approach, like taking one of these hypnotic language pattern decks, which are hugely Milton model influenced. They're just sort of taken out of that framework and done as a collection of more free-floating language patterns. But either way, they learn conversational hypnosis in terms of language patterns and maybe something about storytelling and isomorphic metaphors, as they're called. Now, maybe there may be some deeper strategies and gambits from Erickson get added in that might not be mentioned in the Milton model. It all comes from Erickson, and a lot of it via NLP. So Erickson says they took the shell but left the nut. Yeah, that's exactly true. So what happens is people learn these things, and they got some idea that conversational hypnosis is a thing that in and of itself is going to do something, and it's not. It's the same as hypnosis. Hypnosis is a tool or a format for helping people create solutions. It's not a solution in and of itself. It's not an answer in and of itself. So this is the problem. So people learn the conversational hypnosis and they just still don't know what they want to do with it because they've got no nut. They've got nothing that says, here's what I want to do with it. And I think part of what keeps people from doing that is the assumption that it is a thing in and of itself, not just a delivery system. The shell and the nut is a great metaphor because the shell is the delivery system. The nut is what you want to deliver. So if you're trying to learn it without any sense of what you want to deliver, I've learned the patterns. Bandler will say, write out the patterns. Yeah, but what's my context for writing them out? What do I want to achieve? What's the deeper understanding underneath? So without a deeper understanding underneath, without a nut, nobody can really use it. And I think they learn it and then they drift off. They go, well, I don't know. What was I supposed to do with it? So it requires sort of connecting into something deeper, a deeper set of understandings in order to make it work. And that's why, for me, I'm very happy to go conversational hypnosis for change work, rather than conversational hypnosis for anything you like. You want to sell stuff, you want to do that. Right. No, just for change work, for just helping people make significant changes in their lives. And then you can start, because you're not just going, it's conversational hypnosis. There's all of those understandings underneath, which I said in the audios. Erickson had a lot of understandings about how human beings worked, what sorts of patterns tended to work well for human beings, what didn't, and he could x-ray somebody's current reality and go, wow, I can see how that's causing limitation and pain, and I can see where it's bound up, and make a good bet that if we do it like this instead, this person's going to get freedom. So he's helping somebody make that adjustment. He's not saying here's how you have to be, but he's making a bet on here's going to be a good way to be. And he's introducing that bet that he's making to the person's personalized creative intelligence to adapt in their own way. So there's a bit of a negotiation, a co-creation, but it's not done blindly. It's not done with no understanding. We'll just say some words and hope the words will change things. So I think for me, it is connecting the surface level skills and keep touching back to those, but also what is the nut or the various nuts underneath that can be connected to conversational hypnosis. The whole point of conversational hypnosis, so far as I'm concerned, is reorganizing reality, helping somebody reorganize their reality or reweave their reality, depending on what mood I'm in. But, you've got to be able to look and see what's there to start with before you start reorganizing stuff. If you just go in and go, I've got some abstract, better organization, I'm not even going to look to see what's there. I just know how this needs to be. And then you go and start trying to throw this new organization of reality in. You're not going to do good conversational hypnosis because you have to meet somebody where they're at. You have to be able to connect with the way they're organizing things in order to be able to pace and lead into different options and different possibilities. If you can't really connect with what's there, you can't work with what's there, and what's there is what you have to work with. You cannot just ignore what's there and try and cram new stuff in on top. So this is why this ability to x-ray reality is really useful. And somebody asked me, well, how do you do that? And the answer to how I do that is from years of experience of listening to people and developing what I call universal models for how people work. So you want to be able to model people's individual reality, but also have good ideas about how we as human beings generally create pain and suffering and stuckness and difficulty versus creating, possibility and choice and these sorts of things and capability. So we want to have general models for that. but we also want to be able to model people individually. And we're often, when we're working, we want to be able to hold these two different models in place. Go, I see that. High functioning people tend to organize things like this. That sounds really judgmental when I say high functioning people. I'm just talking about people who are able to be adaptive, connect to their resources, handle what comes their way, keep rising up, keep moving forward, keep doing good things. There are general patterns that more high functioning individuals in that sense will operate from, right? You can try and teach somebody those patterns, fine. Or you can find out, well, how do they relate to their existing patterns, and how do I pace and lead somebody from their existing patterns to these more high functional patterns that are going to create better ongoing experiences and better results for them. So really that's why you want to be able to hear what's going on.
This 6 weeks of X-Ray reality is all through the lens of using the meta model to do that?
Largely, yeah. So largely through the lens of the meta model. But what I want to do with that is I want to show how that connects in with conversational hypnosis. What I'm not saying is we're going to create specific sets of conversational hypnosis patterns. We're going to explore possibilities, but it's about that seeing to start with. So we're going to look at it through the eyes of the meta model, but it may not be confined ultimately entirely to the meta model. So there may be some other patterns that kind of drift in peripherally, but my aim is to help people get a good footing for being able to hear the structure of somebody's reality, right? Get what the key operational concepts are, where the binds are, and get a sense of how is this creating, you could call it the trance that is the problem, or the set of circumstances that are perpetuating their life that they want to change. How is their organization of reality perpetuating that change? We want to free them from that bind and open them up to new possibilities, right? Not intellectually, but in an actual embodied, oh, wow, I see something different now. Like they get this quality that I sometimes call the mind shift, the perspective shift, the experience shift. Some people will call it the aha moment. That's what we want to be able to do. We've got to see what's there first. We've got to have a way of seeing what's there. People are incredibly interesting. And there's so much detail and subtlety. Every time somebody speaks, they speak from a set of conceptual organizations. So you're not so much interested in what they say, you're interested in the implications as to where they're saying it from, what's hidden underneath. We got that 3 levels of mind model, and there's that bottom level, the semantic base. I want revelation as to what's in the semantic base. That's what I'm listening for. You can't ask somebody, what's in your semantic base? They don't know. But every word they say will be speaking from that place and therefore revealing it if you know how to listen, you know how to look. I do this with no idea about what I'm doing. I have unconscious competence with doing it because I've been doing it for a long, long time. So somebody says, James, how do you do it? It's a bit like saying, James, how do you walk? I go, well, I put one foot in front of the other. Now, if somebody said, James, how did you learn to walk? Actually, I don't remember. But technically, if I did remember, I could say, well, here's what I did first. The very first thing I did when I started to learn to walk was this. And then I realized this, and then I realized this. So what occurred to me recently when I decided that it might be a good idea to do this meta model thing, this X-raying reality, is because somebody asked me in the session, how do you X-ray reality? And I thought, well, I just do it. Just the same as I just walk, but that's a lousy answer. So I went back, I thought, well, how did I learn to do it? And what occurred to me, and I don't think I'd really thought about this consciously before, is the first place I learned to do it was the meta model. So those were my first steps in X-raying people's reality. Now, it went beyond that. It's gone way beyond that. So instead of me trying to teach what I have kind of an unconscious competence with, doing 20 years of professional work in this area, it's like, all right, let's go back and start to retrace my steps in learning to do this. I started with the meta model. Now, the meta model is interesting in that the meta model has grown with me across the years. So I learned the meta model as it was presented in NLP. And then I sort of moved on to other things. So I moved on to I started to look at Albert Ellis's stuff, REBT, and how he thinks about how people create pain and organize their reality. And what I found is, there's overlaps between Albert Ellis's thinking and the meta model. So Ellis's thinking, for example, enriched some of my understanding of some aspects of the meta model. So now if we're teaching the meta model, let's say we get into modal operators of necessity, the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, the musts, the must nots, the have tos. Like that area, that's the whole terrain of Albert Ellis. Albert Ellis has got loads to say on that. Or also Albert Ellis has got a lot to say on what you might call complex equivalences. In the meta model called a complex equivalence, right? This equals that. So the most common complex equivalence is I am. It's the verb to be, right? So if somebody says I am sad, they're actually creating a little trance for them in the moment. What that means is in this moment, I equals sad. Sad is the totality of me. And when somebody makes a statement like that, I am sad, what that means is I now am relating to the world as sad. So Stephen Walensky said this, all trance is identity. This is the way in which all trance is identity. When we go into a trance, that becomes the totality of the I that we are relating to the world as. Right? So somebody says, I am sad. I equals sad. Complex equivalence. Sad and me, the same thing right now. Right now, Ellis has got a lot to say about these complex equivalences. Now, complex equivalences like this are exactly what we build self-concept with in a white path sense, right? Like Muhammad Ali. I'll show you how great I am. I'm the greatest, right? He's there. He's got this complex equivalence. I equals the greatest. Ooh. If he's in the trance of I am the greatest, well, then he's relating to the world as the greatest, right? So you go, well, that's good, isn't it? That's good. You want to be great. You want to be all of this. Maybe. So like a lot of people will build self-concept through these I am statements in this positive white pathway. The white pathway to deal with self-concept is through I ams, better quality I ams. I am capable. I can handle this, right? I know what I'm doing. Right? I've handled many things. These complex equivalences. Ellis, on the other hand, he's like, stop self-rating. Give it up. Let it go, right? You're not great. You're not terrible. You're not anything. So the negative part again, the releasing from the bind of identity, the dissolution of the trance in the moment. So all of this is actually there in the meta model, but nobody ever sees it. They go, oh, complex equivalences. When you hear a complex equivalence, here's what you say. You learn the meta model. Somebody says, I am sad. And you might say, oh, is there anything else that you are other than sad? Right, that's it. Boom, sum total of it. That's as deep as it went. We don't see the implications on self-concept, on how it creates experience, how it creates relationship to the world. We just get one blunt tool to challenge it with and shift with. What is every other way we can release somebody from that trance and have them connect into a richer, greater, deeper possibility? What is everything else that is possible for them goes beyond that old experience of sad, right? And that was quite an experience, wasn't it? So there's a lot that we can start to do conversational hypnosis-wise based off these distinctions, especially when we understand the deeper implications of them. And that is the thing that I feel is missing from the meta model as it is basically taught, these deeper implications. I learned them from elsewhere and retrofitted them to the meta model, if that makes sense. So in terms of what I want to do, what I want to go into with this meta model, I want to use the meta model as a start point for people. What I want to give people is my sort of retrofitted version. So it's not pure, but I want to get people to get these deeper understandings about how it creates experience in the moment, how it creates somebody's relationship to the world around them, the people around them, their relationship to themselves, the implications of this in terms of what they're getting and what they're not getting in life. Because this is all significant stuff if we want to help people make changes. So this is why I think this is a valuable way in to being able to kind of x-ray people's reality, do the belief forensic stuff. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be Q&A, right? We're going to unpack stuff. This isn't something I'm presenting in like, here is a finished work. I know what it is. I know the structure of it, all of this. We are using an existing framework as a tool for exploration. Right. So at the moment, I don't know to what degree, how deeply we get into the implications and the sort of deeper underpinnings, the deeper, richer understandings of what's going on in terms of human psychosocial dynamics, versus how much we get into weaving new linguistic possibilities and these sorts of things. So this is a conversational hypnosis training. So, but we're actually focusing on the underlying structures we're working with most. What's likely to happen is we may spend more time on unpacking those underlying structures, the implications, the trances they create in the moment, and then less time tying that into actual conversational hypnosis patterns that might change things. Or we might spend less time on the former and more time on the latter, depending upon the questions that we get, on the engagement that we get, where people's interest is. As always, the way I like to teach is through co-creation. I don't like to sit there in abstract and make some decision about what people need to know and what they should know and what's important and what's not. I don't know. I'm looking to help people solve the problems they have and get better at doing what they're doing. So there has to be a collaborative, co-creative element to it. What I will say is this: we will use the time very productively in terms of enhancing people's ability to understand how people organize their reality, understand the trances in the moment that creates, and look at options for starting to unravel, unweave those trances, create space, and create the conditions for new life to come through. In this area of change work, conversational hypnosis, there is infinite richness. So across 6 weeks, we will use that time very fruitfully. And what will likely come out the back end of that is a whole bunch of threads on where next. It is an absolute objective. We're not going slow with this. We're going as deep as we want to go. And the aim is 100% that those who participate and choose to participate, they're going to get their skills upgraded with regard to doing conversational change work, conversational hypnosis. Not just that, but even being in the world, being able to hear, connect with, see how people are creating what they're creating when they're creating their pains, their suffering, their binds, all of this. It'll all be hanging out and you go, oh, I can see what's going on there, right? I see how that's making their experience. I see how that's making their limitation in that moment, right? I wonder what I might be able to say right now that can introduce just a little bit of change into this. That's a very interesting place to come at the world from.
Hello, friends. This is Ruckus. If you check the link in the description, you can get a free 1-hour training with James on conversational hypnosis. Just click that link, put in your email, and you'll immediately be able to get right to it.